Welcome back to the Shot Clock Scribbles episode. Today, we have a special guest, none other than Simone Sandri out of New York. A little background about Simone. He's a U.S. correspondent for Gazzetta, dello, U.S. sports analyst for Radio 24. He was also a TV host on NBA TV for close to 8 years. Co-hosted a show called Basketball International on there. And then also he was a host on NBA Cares, co-hosted several NBA Cares events in Europe and the USA. Simone, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I know you're busy, guys. Every single minute is definitely appreciated this way. But let's get straight to it. I wanted to first talk about the Anthony Davis trade. Going to
That's
Dallas.
You call the Anthony Davis trade? You don't call it the Luka trade? I like it.
Yeah. I was just thinking.
You're probably the only person in America who actually calls it like that. Good. I like it.
It's the biggest trade that probably has ever been done in season. What are your thoughts? It's been a couple of weeks now that the trade happened. We're seeing Luka kind of evolve with the Lakers now as the time has gone by. What were your thoughts at the time, and what are your thoughts now?
Well, obviously, it was shocking, like everybody else. It was almost close to midnight here in New York, and I was actually pretty funny. I just came back from the Lakers game at the Garden, so it was shocking on so many levels. And I actually, at first, like everybody else, I thought it was either something weird happened or some sort of hacking. And then for at least a couple of days, I could not believe that Nico decided to pull the plug on the Luka experience in Dallas at this particular time. At 25 years old, who's like an all-world player, a generational talent, the guy who's beloved in your community, a guy who actually supposedly had no issue in contract dispute, didn't ask for anything, didn't ask for a trade. He had obviously some issue with his weight or with his training regimen, but that's really not enough to decide to pull the plug on his era in Dallas. Just came off the NBA Finals. The more days passed by and the more we kind of got some explanation from Dallas, and the more puzzling the whole thing became, because it just didn't make any sense the way they did it, how they did it, the fact that they decided to get rid of, again, a generational talent who's actually basically had an immediate impact in Los Angeles. I don't think I've ever seen in my, you said 29 years following the NBA, not only a trade that big, but a trade that damaged so much a franchise instantly. Oh, yeah. And the relationship between the fan base and the ownership group and the club, it's gonna be difficult to put back together. And I still cannot believe, and I still can justify that Nico Harrison did, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail there. A lot of moving parts. A lot of people are still confused to this day of exactly why they pulled the plug. I just saw Quentin Grimes the other day had a interview, and he talked about like, hey, I always saw Luka in the gym. I don't know all this stuff about his weight being 270. I don't know why that was a distraction, because he got his team to the finals. Now it even looks even worse because Anthony Davis is hurt. Now you got Kyrie hurt. He's going to be out for most of next season. The way that franchise is going, a lot of people are not very happy, and rightfully so, especially going after the Boston Celtics in the finals last year. This might be an obvious question, but I do want to get your take on it. Who won the trade? Like, let's say Anthony Davis is actually fully healthy, Kyrie Irving is fully healthy. Who actually won that trade?
That actually, you're making a good point. Like, even in the best case scenario who won the trade, I still think it's not even a discussion. I mean, the Lakers found, again, a generational talent who's going to be the face of the franchise for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Even in the best case scenario, I think there was no debate that the Lakers won the trade. Also, by the way, I think the Lakers didn't even give up much to get Luka.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Even with the bigger package, I still think it was crazy to trade him. Even if you put Reeves in, or if you put another first-round pick, I still don't think how you can actually do that. And then you add the bad luck, or the karma, whatever you want to think about it, and the injuries, and the fact that the window was really small to begin with. Because when you actually add an injury-prone player who's in this, the window to win a title, it's actually small. Now it got really, really, really small. And now there's decision to be, I think, to be made. The idea of trading AD, I don't think it's out of the question. Even though, from my understanding, in Dallas, they're not really considering it at all. Which is, to me, it's, I don't know. I would actually entertain at least the thought of trading him, especially not knowing what kind of Kyrie I'm gonna get back once he's healthy.
Exactly.
And that means that it's really difficult to think that this Dallas team, the way is assembled now, is going to be a contender anytime soon. So it's crazy trade to begin with, and it became like the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, well said. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like that.
Yeah.
So be curious to see how that goes, especially towards the end of the season and also next season as well. Slightly pivoting now, I want to speak about the New York Knicks. I know you cover the Knicks and, the Brooklyn Nets since you're in the areas. Wanted to get your take on the whole Jalen Brunson being out for 2 weeks. He rolled his ankle. Wow, that was an amazing game against the Lakers the other day. Really felt like a playoff game going to overtime. The Knicks just played last night as well against the Clippers, dropped that one too. I just want to get your sense on the state of the New York Knicks right now as it is. Right. They sit in the third spot in the East, 3 games clear of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I actually really like this team with Mitchell Robinson coming back. I think that there's a lot of moving part that can be interesting during the playoff. I think it's a kind of playoff made kind of team with especially with Robinson giving Karl Anthony Towns the possibility of playing at the 4 for maybe 20 minutes a night, which I think is probably the best scenario for the Knicks. I think this team, if you look at the playoff perspective, they can defend. They have a lot of options on offense. Anunoby is playing fantastic basketball. I think it could be an X factor in the playoffs. So I really like this team going into the playoff, even though they've been a bit up and down during the season. Obviously, everything changes once Brunson injury occur. It looks a little bit better than what we thought as soon as the injury occurred, because it looked really bad, honestly. They said he's going to be reevaluated in a couple of weeks, so I guess being reevaluated doesn't mean that you're going to come back in a couple of weeks, but still, you basically take away the worst case scenario option, which is that you don't have Brunson for the rest of the season. They probably can survive, and they probably can defend the third spot without Brunson if Bridges if he comes in and he can actually give them more offensively, and then you have McBride who's going to probably start from until Brunson comes back. But I think they really need Bridges to be more involved offensively and be more looking for his own shot and more productive. But I still think that this team is actually pretty good, and I still think that this team can actually make noise in the East. It's going to be a difficult matchup in the second round. I mean, if everything goes as we think it is going to go, obviously it's going to be a very difficult matchup with the Celtics in the second round. But I think this team actually can compete.
Yeah. What do you think their ceiling is for this season? What's the furthest that they actually get to?
I think that actually they can compete for. I think they can actually they can even come out of the East. Obviously, they're not the 2 teams who are the favorite right now. But I think again, with Robinson, this team in the playoff is going to be scary. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of the East. Obviously, Cleveland is the favorite with Boston. I actually probably in a Boston-Cleveland matchup, I would still go with Boston. But I think the Knicks have the team that can actually scare both Boston and Cleveland.
Yeah. And you spoke about Mitchell Robinson too. He's been out all season. Last season, we saw him play some games before an exit. Do you really think he's going to be an X factor come the playoffs?
I think actually the idea that Mitchell Robinson could be an impactful player, not only because what he does, especially defensively, and his energy and his feel for blocks, and but also because I think it allows Towns to play a few minutes, like longer stretch at the 4 with the rim protection. Towns at the 4 is a threat for a lot of teams. So I think that in that scenario, I think Mitchell Robinson can actually be an X factor. I would probably think that X factor for the Knicks would be Anunoby in the playoff. He's obviously a 2-way player who can do a lot of things, but I still think that this team is scary because it's got a lot of weapons and defensive. That honestly, especially lately, they haven't defended at their own level, and Tibbs is a little frustrated for that. But still, I think comes playoff time, I think this team has really have all the pieces to maybe go on a run, and obviously if everybody's healthy. So we'll see what happens, especially with Brunson, obviously.
That's a big thing with the Knicks. I feel like it's always about like health. If the Knicks are fully healthy, they could make a lot of noise. If the health kind of deteriorates, that's a uphill battle. I mean, for any team, but for the Knicks as well, because their bench is not 100% productive as other benches. People have said Tibbs runs his starters to the ground. And yeah, I mean, the starters play very heavy minutes. I really like Miles McBride. The Knicks took a gamble on him. RJ Barrett, they shipped him out because they really wanted to bet on Miles McBride. And I feel like he could definitely make a difference in there as well. Okay, so you have a pretty high ceiling for these Knicks.
Right.
Okay, no, I love to hear that. Brooklyn Nets, moving over to the Nets here. It sounds like these guys are in a real building phase. Jordi Fernandez, their former Kings assistant coach. You have D'Angelo Russell that went back over there. Cam Johnson. Where is this team moving forward?
Well, first of all, you actually mentioned Jordi, who's been one of the surprise, I think, of the whole NBA, the way he's handling a tough situation in Brooklyn, because at the end of the day, you really know at the beginning of the season that you're gonna end up in the lottery. So it's player development, which is one of the things that the Kings do really well. They've been doing really well with some of their assistants over the years. It's not the easiest thing to do when you actually end up, at the end of the season, you need to lose a lot of games to be totally fair. To be totally honest with you. So, yeah. But Jordi has shown that he's like an excellent coach. He's really well liked by his players, and he's and he could be like the foundation of this club going on. Obviously, they have to see where the chips fall in the draft. If they're able to get, obviously if they get Cooper Flag, everything changes. But let's see if they get like a top 3 talent. And then they have, tons of cap space. They have a lot of assets, so they can really do something in this summer. I'm a little surprised to be totally honest, that they actually hang on to Cam Johnson. I actually thought that they would probably trade him at the deadline for like a nice package. I assumed that nothing that the Nets was asking for was available, because I think they went into the trade deadline with the idea that they would actually probably trade him if a good package would come along, and I guess it didn't. Mm-hmm. They have some interesting young players. They have decision to make with Russell. Nick Claxton is a solid starter in the NBA. So I guess we have to see the next phase with what happened with the draft, and if they're able to find on the market either via trade or with free agency, like a star. There are stars that are going to be available this summer, especially via trade. So we'll see what happens if they're able to get somebody, and if they're able to give basically Jordi the opportunity to grow and to be able to coach also a winning team, not just a young kind of losing team. They came out in the worst possible way from the Big Three era. And they were able, but I think they were able to kind of manage the transition post, stars leaving, which is not an easy thing to do in the NBA. And now there's a new phase, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. The Nets with those big three, and then after the collapse of all that, it's just they're definitely in a real building phase. This upcoming draft, there's a lot of great players, right? Simone, last year wasn't so great, I'll be honest. But this year, obviously Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey. Switching gears a little bit now, I wanted to speak about your early beginnings, Simone. How did you first get started in the world of basketball? What made you fall in love with the sport?
Right. So it's actually a good question. I was actually playing soccer. I was a soccer player in Italy, and I came to the US on a soccer scholarship in college, and I ended up being on a basketball hotbed like Seton Hall, and I really started falling in love with college basketball once I was in the United States. I actually I liked basketball to begin with when I was in Italy as well, but I really fell in love with college basketball, and then it kind of translated to the NBA. I became instantly a huge NBA fan. So I started working actually when I was in college. I started writing when I was in college, and then once I was out of school and I got this job as a correspondent, obviously the NBA was actually on the way up globally. The dream team was just played in Barcelona, and there was a real effort from David Stern to reach to Europe, to Asia, to Africa, and to South America. And then it became like an easy path to take from a sports perspective. I started covering the NBA, and it became like obviously the most international league that you could probably expect. You could probably envision when those years after, I would say, the Atlanta Olympics, and with you'll see the international player, especially the European players, not only being drafted in the second round, but getting a chance to be starters. We went from having starters in the NBA to have All-Star to have MVP. So it was like a long process, and I was really lucky that then NBA TV hired me at a particular time when international basketball was on the way up, and great international players were coming, and I kind of became like an kind of international expert for NBA TV, for NBA radio. So that basically was like the stepping stone of getting to a coverage of the NBA, which I was really lucky because I had like a front row seat on the biggest change in the NBA that you can have imagined from an international perspective. Because again, we went from having like international players as novelty as the Drazen Petrovic, but people have a hard time pronouncing his name, and it was like a novelty, to having MVPs, having MVP, they're international players, and they keep being international players. And next season, which I'm lucky enough to vote, I guarantee is going to be an international player at the next MVP. Either going to be Shea or Jokic.
More on Jokic in just a moment here, but I think you had some really good points there. I think with Commissioner David Stern, he definitely wanted to take the game global, right? That was such a great idea, because if you can get people all over the world to love the game, and then with what they're doing now too, they're going to Paris every year. There's more initiatives. There's a bunch of chatter about in the future for the All-Star game, having it, USA versus the world, which I think honestly is a great idea. But we'll talk about the All-Star game in a little bit. But it's good to see your rise and where it all started, especially to Seton Hall over there in New Jersey. I mean, you live in the mecca of basketball over there. That was a good transition. It's not like you touched down in like North Dakota or one of these states that there's no life as 100%. Far as basketball goes.
Yeah.
What's one of your fondest memories when you were covering the game pretty early on that you can remember?
Well, actually, that's a good question. I was lucky enough to actually see the Bulls, the 72 wins Bulls, which for some people is the greatest team of all time. And then I was lucky also enough to cover the Warriors, the 17 Warriors, which I think they were the best team of all time. So I was really lucky that I could actually make a comparison between these two unbelievable teams. I've seen both of those teams in the finals, so that's probably one of the thing that I remember the most. And also, to be perfectly honest, seeing Marco Bellinelli wins his championship in 2014 was an unbelievable experience. Again, to be totally honest, Marco Bellinelli is a really good friend of mine, and I saw him when he was 19 years old, coming to the NBA, not knowing what was going on. I remember this story of him. I actually helped him getting NBA TV because he wasn't able to do it. And the idea that a kid who's basically coming here, doesn't know what to expect, then ends up being an NBA champ. And actually that season also he won the 3-point contest. It was just an unbelievable end of his journey. It was really special. It was very emotional also. If I have to kind of remind myself, like some of the most interesting thing, I think those are. I was lucky enough actually to see LeBron's first game in Sacramento, which also is
wow.
I saw, and some of the memories that I have, it's see Jordan last game in Washington, again, or even Wemby's first game a couple of years ago was as LeBron first game in Sacramento. So it was those things that you don't really understand at that moment. Like LeBron's first game was a nice thing, but now it's become like a major thing to remember. So unfortunately, once you get a little old, like I am, you got like a lot of things that you probably
you're still young. You're still young, man.
As memories, yeah.
Oh man, those are some really good memories. That's really hard to pick from all of those. 72 Bulls, 2017 Golden State Warriors. If those two teams played against each other, Simone, who wins?
Honestly, the 95, 96, those eras, the 90s was a completely different eras from the physicality perspective. You could get away with stuff that you can even dream of get away in now. And also the 3-pointer wasn't used as much as it's been used, obviously, with Steph and with those Warriors. I still think that we still are underrating a bit the 17 Warriors. I think that team was talent-wise was just amazing. Considering that it was a great team to begin with the Kevin Durant, which at that time was probably the top 2 or top 3 player in the NBA, and the possibility that they have, the option that they have offensively, and also the way they defend. It was really a good defensive team. Iguodala was obviously an unbelievable on-ball defender, and then you have Draymond Green, which is one of the smartest defenders I've ever seen. Those Bulls were much more physical, and MJ, with today's rule, you can't really envision what MJ could do. You could probably score 50 points at will, because if you just touch him, you get to the line. At that time, people were very aggressive on MJ and were very physical. So, and he still would go out and score 30 points at will. So it's I'm not crazy about doing those kind of comparisons, because the eras are so different, but those were just two unbelievable teams.
Well, that's fair. The basketball game was played a lot different. I mean, these days, like you just said, if you touch somebody, you go into the line.
Yeah, and also you have different, like you have illegal at that time. You had the so-called illegal defense. A lot of people were. The young people are probably watching this, they don't even know what the legal defense was. You basically couldn't play zone. Like, there was a way that you could play, but it's really difficult. They didn't allow you to play zone, basically. So I mean, it's completely different. It's a completely different time, completely different rules, and that's why basketball is evolving every year.
Yeah, no, that's great. Speaking about something that you just talked about, you talked about Jokic. I saw you post it today. I just posted it too. I mean, I think we're all in all, but I think some people are kind of getting numb to it now. Jokic just dropped the first 30, 20, and 20 game in NBA history. Can you talk about Nikola Jokic for us?
Honestly, it's find it hard to actually put the words on what he did last night. The effortless. To me, the most impressive thing was how effortless was, which is amazing. It's the best stat line in the history of the NBA, basically. And it was effortless. And if you didn't actually look at the stat line, you would think that he was just having like one of his game, when his normal game was doing a little bit of everything. The guy is so pure, a pure basketball mind that I still think is. People don't realize what an unbelievable play is. This year, honestly, and again, I'm one of the voters, so it's difficult to even talk about it, but SGA is having an unbelievable season, obviously. The Thunder, to me, they're the best team in the NBA. They still don't get the respect that they probably should, because right now people are talking about the Lakers, but I think the Thunder is just in a class on their own right now. But still, if you look at the number, if you look at the impact that Jokic is having on the Nuggets, it's a wide open race. Jokic is having the best season of his life, and we're talking about the 3 times MVP. It's just an unbelievable player. I've never seen a guy that being that dominant with a group of players. Like, let's not forget that Jokic doesn't have a teammate who's an all NBA. Like, obviously it's different with the addition of Westbrook, but he basically won a championship, and he's still playing with no all NBA players and no all star players that he can actually go to. It's just an amazing thing to say. So I just think the guy's amazing. He goes the way he goes about his business is all he played the right way, and I just think it's just an unbelievable talent. And we're really lucky that we are able to actually get to see him.
Oh yeah, 100%. You talked about effortless. I've watched Jokic several times too. He makes it very easy. Those stat lines, like you just mentioned right now, like I could 100% concur with that. The next thing you look at the stat line, you're like, whoa, he already has 10 assists. Because he does it so easy, is what you just alluded to right there. Right. You mentioned that you do have one of the votes. Be interesting to see how it all goes. Do you get to vote for the Finals MVP again this year, Simone?
I honestly, I don't know, because they tell us during the finals, depending on who's covering. Sometimes there's somebody who's sick or whatever, but I don't know. So I might. I don't know.
Got it. For all those listeners out there.
It's not, but to be fair, just usually that's actually an easy vote. The difficult votes are MVP. The difficult votes are the All NBA teams, especially the third All NBA teams. Which there's a lot of pressure. Rightfully so. We really need to do our jobs, because it's tied also to the max contract. So you really have to kind of focus on. You really have not to focus, because we obviously focus on everything, but those are the difficult one, because the difference between somebody who's left off the third NBA teams and somebody who's in, it's not that it's very small. Honestly, the Finals MVP, it's usually an easy vote. This year was a little more complicated because, but it's usually like a very, very easy vote, because usually actually when you have the Warriors win in a certain way, Steph is you have LeBron. So it's an easy vote. The more difficult is definitely the balance that you get right at the end of the season, where you have to vote for everything. So
that's definitely prestigious to be able to cast a vote for all those listeners out there. You got to be big time to be able to get on that panel.
I've been covering the league for a long time.
Man, that's funny. These votes are very important to these players because that's an opportunity for them to, get a bag, as the young kids say. So these votes are very important. How that all goes this year for first team, second team, third team, defensive player of the year, and so forth as well. We're going to now switch gears a little bit now, Simone. All-Star Weekend, you were out here in California, Bay Area. A lot of people had a lot of negative stuff to say about the All-Star game. A lot of people are saying all the problems, but unfortunately, nobody's really, or some, are proposing solutions to the problem. Give me your take on your overall experience at All-Star Weekend and the All-Star game itself.
That's actually a good point, because there are two different things. All-Star Weekend, it's really a lot of fun because there's tons of event. Again, somebody like me who's been covering the league for so long, it's a chance also to see people that you don't really see often. So it's a great social experience for me. For the first time, also I brought my son who's 12 years old, and he's been bugging me to bring him to All-Star Game. So for the first time I brought him, so that was really special for me. Obviously, the experience was great. The game itself it got to a point where it's honestly unwatchable. So I've been a critic of not necessarily the format, because I don't think there's anything that you can do. It's just that this generation of player, they just assume that they just don't put an effort on the All-Star game, which is it's their prerogative. Again, somebody who's been covering the Kobe and the Michael Jordan, it's a little sad for somebody like me, but I understand things are different. The culture is different. The basketball culture is different.
Yeah.
You said there's a solution. I don't think there is a solution. I don't even think that doing a US versus the world is really something that would bring up like the energy juice. Also because like a lot of people are making a comparison with what we've seen in the NHL, but that's a little different because those are national teams. They're not like a world team. A world team doesn't really have something that you don't really play for the world team. Like it's one thing if they bring like 4 national teams and then you play, but you can't really do that honestly in the NBA because unless you do something completely different. I think the only solution would be maybe to do like a one-on-one contest on Sunday instead of the All-Star game and just get rid of the entire game. Maybe that would be a little more fun. I just don't see a solution, to be honest. So I'm sure they're gonna try to tweak it to do something. I just don't see a solution unless you do something drastic. I really don't see a solution.
Yeah, Adam Silver is definitely trying to spice the game up a little bit. From what I'm being told, I think it was Steph Curry's idea too. That kind of came to fruition as far as like the format with this year. It doesn't sound like maybe there's some kind of solution. At the end of the day, Simone, the fans just want something to get excited for, to really cheer on, and they just want the players to take it very serious. I mean, yes, these players play hard every single night. You got LeBron playing 300 plus back-to-back games.
There was a different without going back to the Jordan years. Even 10, 15 years ago, there was no such thing as players not playing games in which they were healthy. So I mean, and player would play reasonably hard every single night. It's like a bit of a snowball effect. You had players who decided to take a little easy on certain games during the regular season, and then what you see a game that doesn't count, obviously, like the All-Star game, people just don't try. So I think it's all tied with the culture, which is fine. It's a different culture. It's just at the same time, if you ask fans to make an effort financially, especially to buy tickets for the All-Star game and stuff, then I don't think it's fair for them going and paying a lot of money for a ticket and then after 5 minutes being bored because nobody really plays.
Yep. You hit it right on the nail there because that is definitely a big controversy in the NBA as far as players taking nights off, especially towards the end of the season. I feel like we see this a lot towards the end of the season when teams already kind of know where they're going to be in the standings. So they're like, hey, we need our best players to get healthy and the playoffs right around the corner. Let's go ahead and rest them up. But what you're saying is contrast to the years before, those players didn't take any nights off. Playing 82 games was a privilege. Nowadays, a lot of players are not playing 82 games. Good to hear your insight on that. Sounds like you had a good time in the Bay Area and your son went to the, was that his first All-Star, weekend?
First All-Star.
Okay.
Yeah, first All-Star
Okay,
weekend.
got it. No, that's awesome.
I mean, there's tons of things going on, especially for the fans, the NBA crossover, which is basically this event space where you do all kinds of NBA related stuff. You can meet players. There's tons of things that you can do as a fan. That's why it's kind of ridiculous at the end of the day to tell them, after you do all this, just come to watch the All-Star game on Steam, which nobody really wants to play anyway. So.
Actually, one favorite event of mine, I've never been to an All-Star game or weekend. I should have gone this year because it was so close. Right. But I really like the practice. I think it's usually on, is it Saturday? Saturday mornings? Yeah. I feel like that's
actually, probably... I'm glad you mentioned because, again, I saw the fan perspective because my son said the same thing. Like he really, really liked the practice. Much better than everything else, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, the dunk contest was especially it was kind of fun, I guess. But yeah, practice was great. And that's why I said that at the end of the day, you're better off just doing something like an event like that instead of doing the game because it's kind of better and the players are interacting with fans. I think practice is really good. You're right.
Yeah, definitely. That's on my bucket list. I have a lot of bucket lists to do with the NBA. But yeah, that's definitely one of them. Let's switch gears now and speak about predictions. You already spoke about it earlier, Simone, as far as the Knicks coming out of the East. You talked about the Cavs. Those guys are rolling right now. Boston Celtics still pretty high in the East there. Who's going to come out of the East and who's going to come out of the West, and who do you have to win it all this season if you could give me a prediction today on the 8th?
Right. So obviously everything is contingent to injuries, obviously, but you can't really consider injury when you make predictions. So I think that the Celtics, when they're healthy, they're really tough out in the playoff. They have the experience, they have the go-to guys, they have the versatility, they have the defense. So they have everything that it's required to make a run in the playoffs. And they have a superstar who still think is underrated in Tatum. So I really like their chances. And by the way, they found Pritchard, who's becoming probably the favorite of the six man of the year. So that's something that they kind of needed, like production from the bench, and they actually found it. So let's see how healthy they're going to be. But I think that if Celtics are healthy, I think they're probably, to me, the team who's coming out of the East. And in the West, it's a bit of a crapshoot because again, I really like Oklahoma City. I think they have so many guys who can contribute. They're an unbelievable defensive team. Now they have size. Arthur Stein is just a great defender. He protects the rim. He's a smart player. He knows where to be. So they do have the size that they didn't have last year, and they have experience, and they have probably the best player in the NBA right now. So even though probably Jokic it's something to say about that, but I think they should be considered the favorite, even though I think the Lakers, this Luka experiment is so far it's been great. So I still want to see them in the playoff, but they do have a chance, which is incredible to say because I never expect. Obviously before the Luka trade, even right after the trade, I really didn't expect this team to be able to compete. I still have to see if they can sustain the defensively. They can sustain because they've been playing surprisingly really, really well defensively. I'd probably give the edge to Oklahoma City right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Lakers make it. So, and then if the finals is probably OKC Boston, I think it's going to be a great finals. And the experience factor might play a role, so I think Boston should be slightly favored, but it will be an unbelievable final. And obviously the NBA would love to have a Lakers versus Celtics final, so that would be an unbelievable finals on a different level as well.
Yeah, I think you rolled out the red carpet there. The Lakers play the Celtics today, right? Yeah. It should be good how the season turns out. You talked about the Celtics coming out of the East. You talked about OKC being the favorites in the West. I think that would be a pretty good matchup because also those two teams are very deep as well. Last season, I was talking about the injury of KP or Porzingis kind of being a factor in those guys winning a championship, but it didn't really hinder their chances really with him still not even being 100%. Okay, so you have Boston going back-to-back then?
Slightly. I mean, I'd be slightly favored over OKC if they make the final. If it's a Lakers-Celtics, I think the Knicks are probably a little bit better on if they're fully healthy, but it'll be interesting. It will be incredibly interesting.
Good prediction. Next question for you is, as far as your role, being a correspondent, you're a very busy guy, analyzing the game, writing, you got deadlines to meet. Can you walk me and my listeners what your typical game night, let's say the Knicks are playing at 7 p.m. on a weeknight, let's just say like Tuesday night. What's the process that you take?
Well, actually, basically our job, because like me, most of the NBA analysts, even the guy that you know from Sacramento, they're kind of like me. They basically have one big gig, and then they have all different things. They have a radio show like I do. Like that. they're guests on TV on some different outlets. So I kind of juggle different things. So I do a column, I do a radio show, I cover also teams. So it's a bit of everything. So every night's a little different, to be honest. Sometimes I just go to a game to interview somebody, or sometimes I just go to a game to get feedback for a story I'm writing about something. Or sometimes I just cover the game, or sometimes I'm doing stuff that I need maybe for the weeks to come. It's an interesting job. Clearly changed immensely since I started. There was like a clear deadline, and that was it when I started. So there's like a million deadlines because you do all kinds of different things. I'm not really good with social media, but you kind of have to start doing that as well. Then you have to think about the different outlet that you're doing stuff for. So it's an interesting job. It certainly keeps me busy. At the same time, to be honest, I'm a huge fan of the NBA, and I still enjoy being near the action. I was actually at the Warriors Knicks game the other day with an Italian basketball player who just came to watch it, and he was asking me, he was like, "Oh, after so many years, you still enjoy? Can you still believe that you were like right next to Steph Curry who's warming up?" Amazing thing. And I told him, and to be honest, I still find it amazing being in the locker room and being able to talk to players and being able to be right next to players and having my own input on it, which is to me it's amazing. Again, I'm a basketball fan, so I don't take it for granted, that's for sure.
That's some good insight. And you just talked about, I think I watched on your Instagram, you guys were recording Steph warm up, right? Was that kind of what you were just talking about too?
It's the most amazing thing I've seen in a long time. I could never guess that actually a player warm up would be an event, but it's just amazing. And every time I see him, he does something different. He does, and people come early just to watch him warm up. He has that routine in which he actually then start going shooting from the logo. It's just, it's amazing. To be fair to him, he's a showman, and he knows if people are actually there to watch. Also part of his, and he takes it seriously, which is such a great ambassador for the game, because also he understands that people are coming to watch his pre-game routine, and he actually takes it seriously, which is amazing. Yeah,
Steph Curry, one of the best ever.
Yeah, for sure.
He had that walk-off buzzer beater against the Nets the other night, which was just ridiculous, man.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Two last questions for you. I know you're a very big fan of football, or here in the U.S. soccer. Yeah. Who is your favorite footballer of all time, and why?
Wow, that's okay. So again, it's difficult to compare eras because especially for the physicality now, referees are just like in basketball. They're calling everything. They're giving yellow card for the second foul. So it's completely different for a defender. It's much more difficult than it used to be. But I'm a big Maradona fan. I'm a Maradona guy. So that era, I think Maradona was the best. Then we went into the Zidane era. I think Zidane was the best player in the world for at least 5-6 years. And then we have obviously the Messi, Ronaldo era, and people are split on it. I'm a Ronaldo guy. I think Messi is amazing. Ronaldo can do so many things, and his physicality, the way he takes care of his body, is like the LeBron James of soccer. I'm a Ronaldo guy. If you asking for right now, probably would say Ronaldo.
Okay, so me and you both big Ronaldo fans. Okay, nice. All right. Love to hear that. 2006, Italy won the World Cup. You just spoke about Zinedine Zidane. The game ended up going to PK shootout. Zidane got thrown out. Headbutt for all people that can remember that game. A headbutt on Materazzi. What can you tell us about Italy winning the World Cup that year?
Arguably one of the best experience of my life. I was actually at the game with Steve Nash. Is one of my best friends. I was there with him, and we were sitting. Funny story. We were sitting in the section of the Italian, because we're friends with a couple of Italian players, especially Ale Piero. And we were sitting in the section, wives and friends section. And actually, remember one of the things that I remember the most is Grosso's wife was probably like 8 months pregnant. And I kept repeating myself, I'm dying right now looking at just waiting for the penalty kicks. I can't imagine the wife who's pregnant, who's about to give birth to a child, seeing your husband go and kick the winning penalty. It's just amazing. And it was just an amazing experience. I actually also went to the semifinal. The Italy versus Germany game was just an amazing game as well. It was arguably one of the greatest experience of my life, and being able to experience as a fan right there and very privileged seats, was just amazing.
That's amazing, man. I feel like you've been to all the greatest games out there that
Yeah,
somebody could ever
a
been.
few good games. Yeah, that's for sure.
I'm very jealous.
Lucky,
I'm very jealous. All right, cool. With that being said, for all my listeners, where can they find you on social media, and how can they follow your work?
Well, yeah, good. The social media thing is, I've been my outlet has been on my case because I'm unfortunately being a little older. I don't really put like a lot of effort on social media. I've been trying lately, but
no, you're doing good. The videos, I see that.
Simone Sandri NYC, and then on Twitter I'm Simone Sandri, and X, like you said. But yeah, that's actually, honestly, it's a part of my job that I should take a little more put a little more effort. It's not easy, to be totally honest. When you're my age and my my perspective, it's not that easy to always trying to capture moment. I kind of regret, to be perfectly honest. You talk about that I witnessed a lot of interesting thing, and the more I think about, especially when I talk to my son and tell him some of the stuff that I've seen, and he asks me for pictures, and I don't have any picture of anything. I did some great things, even socially, with some players. I'm friends with players, and I don't have basically any. I have very, very few pictures because I never really
living in the moment.
And now I kind of regret the fact that I don't really have pictures to remember some of the moments that I had. So I'm trying now, but it's a little late, unfortunately. But so I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, the pictures are all up here, I guess. So,
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, no, I got you. You're trying to be a little bit more on social media and kind of give the fans more content. I love that. Awesome. Well, Simone, thank you so much for your time. That is a wrap.
I think you cover everything. Yeah, it was my pleasure talking to you, and best of luck in your career.
Awesome. Thank you, Simone. Appreciate it.